we had all the time we needed today to make the progress that was achievable during our time here in New York City. I know everyone's following this minute by minute and hour by hour. This is going to be a process that will take days and weeks to work our way through.
Busy man. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo assuring the public that the meeting with a top North Korean official in New York today was successful, despite the fact that we got word midday that it appeared to be ending about 2 hours earlier than they had expected. And now Kim Yong-chol goes to Washington, where he will head to the White House and apparently hand-deliver a letter from the dear leader written to President Trump. So what's in there, we don't know yet, but we'll get some more details on it, no doubt, tomorrow. So do the North Koreans have any intention of meeting the demands that have been laid out by the Secretary of State and by the President? Mickey Bergman is executive director of the Richardson Center for Global Engagement. He also worked on hostage negotiations to secure Otto Warmbier's release from North Korea, and he knows the country well. Mickey, good to see you. Thanks for being here tonight. I'd like to start by playing one more soundbite from Secretary of State Pompeo, because I'd like you to kind of unpack this language and tell me what you're reading here. Watch this.
I believe they are contemplating a path forward where they can make a strategic shift, one that their country has not been prepared to make before. This will obviously be their decision.
So that kind of sounds like they're not agreeing to give up their nuclear weapons at this point, is what I see there. Do you agree?
So I think to me, it's clear that the North Koreans will not disarm all of their nuclear weapons, and that's a matter of mismatched expectations. But I think that what we saw today with Pompeo in the meeting, and the way he's actually articulating it, is very smart. I think it was one new additional step forward in the building of personal relations and those interactions. Look, it looks like a roller coaster. We've been riding this for a little while, and as Secretary Pompeo said, we're going to ride it for a while longer. But the fundamentals are really not changing much. So I'll say 4 quick things about it. Number one, I believe that the president was absolutely right in taking this summit. Former presidents declined similar propositions, and they were wrong. Number two, the president was right at deploying Secretary Pompeo, wearing his hat as a CIA director, using the intelligence. That was the right path. The evidence we saw today in New York. The evidence we saw when we managed to get the 3 detainees back ahead of the summit. Number three, I worry, and that's to your point, Martha, I worry about the mismatch in expectations between what the North Koreans are willing to put on the table and what the president has conveyed publicly to the American people, both on denuclearization, what are the details, and second, about the military presence, American military presence in the peninsula. And last, I really hope that the president and Secretary Pompeo will use this summit, these negotiations, in order to bring up the issue of remains of U.S. soldiers. You know, there's 5,300 American soldiers that died in that war and are still in North Korea. Governor Richardson and myself have been working with the North Koreans on this for a while. We believe there's historic opportunity to bring them, and I believe and I hope that the President and Secretary Pompeo will do that.
Yeah, I completely understand that desire, and I think we all hope that is part of the discussion. You know, I thought it was very interesting. Sergei Lavrov had a meeting, the foreign minister from Russia had a meeting with Kim Jong-un, and he was praising Pyongyang. He said the city looks wonderful. There's so many more theaters now than there were last time I was here. And I thought, you know, I don't think that's something that we all picture. And it made me wonder about the desires on the parts of the North Korean and what they want. You know, do they want to sort of get into the real world, for lack of a better term? And is that what's really driving this? And are they willing to give up their nukes to do that?
So I will say 2 things on this, and I'm laughing, excuse me for laughing on this. When I was in Pyongyang, my last time was a year and a half ago, and as you mentioned, I was there to try and negotiate the release of Otto Warmbier and the remains, and a lot of the negotiations, and that's true about the North Koreans, they don't happen in the official formal meetings, they happen on the side. I was negotiating over the terms of Otto Warmbier during a dolphinarium show, which they took me to. There was thousands of North Korean kids there. They take you to the monuments, they take you to the restaurants, and that's a key in that personal relations that happen. So I do have to admit, Pyongyang surprised me. It's building up, you know, high rises. They are trying. It's the elite in North Korea that benefits from that, which is the military and political. Now, to the point on the Russians and the fact that the Prime Minister, the Russian Prime Minister, was there, and both that and the Chinese presence and meetings is basically them saying, hey, we are players in this too, because they want to stake their role in the area, not just give it up to the Americans.
Yeah, the Russians helped them build that nuclear program back in the late 60s. So, Mickey Bergman, thank you very much. Good to see you tonight,
Thank you.
sir.